Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It would have been very awkward if I was here myself, so that's already great. I will be looking a little bit up and down because I have two screens. I'm not praying, I'm just checking what's on the other screen because my presentation is half here and half there. My presentation is going to be a little bit like Tarantino's movie, not linear, and I will be jumping back and forth in past and future, you know, like when in the middle of the movie, suddenly you see 3 years later or 7 days earlier. So first I will tell you about what I'm going to talk about today. Then I'm going to present myself and my organization, Terraforming, and then I will go back to the main topic, and hopefully in the end we will have time for some nice interaction and Q&A. So, International Library Platform for Education about the Holocaust is a project by Terraforming, based in Novi Sad in Serbia, in cooperation with several great partnering organizations, National Library of Serbia, Holocaust Memorial Center for the Jews of Macedonia, the Anne Frank House from Amsterdam, and Europeana Foundation, but also additional participating institutions and experts from Austria, Germany, Israel, Netherlands, Poland, Serbia, Spain, UK, and USA. And simply we don't have time to name them all, but I have to express my gratitude to, in particular, International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IRA, who supported our project, as well as the Anne Frank House from Amsterdam, the Austrian Federal Ministry of Education, Science and Research, and the National Fund of the Republic of Austria for Victims of National Socialism, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Serbia. Also, very important, our project is awarded with a significant international award called Yehuda Bauer Grant. It is the highest recognition by the most important intergovernmental organization in the field of Holocaust education, commemoration, and research, called IRA, or International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. This is like an Oscar in the movies, and I'm always saying in our field, if this was an Oscar, it would be Oscar Schindler, but it is called Yehuda Bauer Grant. And the goal of this presentation is to introduce, promote, and propose the concept, and to seek partnerships and support for further improvement, development, and implementation, not implantation, implementation, and to invite you to download the publication and read more about this idea. So yes, there is a publication already there. You can find it on our website and on this short bit.ly link, but it's safe that you go on our website, terraforming.org, and you will find it. It is, of course, in free of charge and in PDF format. And it's in the publication, the concept is presented as a summary of discussions and exchanges between librarians, archivists, teachers, historians, and international experts that this discussion took place during the 6 months of various project activities, but in particular, the concluding international seminar at the National Library of Serbia in Belgrade that took place in December 2018. For younger participants in the audience, a long time ago, people actually used to meet each other for real face-to-face, and this is one of such photographs. I'm very proud that we managed to gather such a group, among them some of the leading international experts in the fields of Holocaust education, expert librarians, archivists, and historians. And this is how the publication looks like. It's divided in 4 chapters and also includes short interviews with some of the leading experts in this field, participants of our project. And these 4 chapters are actually 4 line of thoughts, 4 line of thinking about this International Library Platform. So we are talking about unexplored and unutilized potentials of library infrastructure in education about the Holocaust. We're talking about how to engage the library and the librarians, of course, and new opportunities in international cooperation, and also of possible futures and visions of such an international platform. So now I will tell you, now I will introduce myself. So my name is Misko Stanisic, and this is how you can get in touch with me. And our organization is called Terraforming. The organization I co-founded, and I'm its director. But let us, like in Tarantino movies, go back in time a little bit, and let me show you something else first. So this is my kitchen. It looks probably like many others, except that I cleaned it up a little bit before taking this picture, just to show off. But the point is that on the wall, there is something below the clock. And that something is this. This is an ashtray. It's about this size. It used to belong to my grandmother. And when I say it belonged to my grandmother, I have to explain it was not significant for her at all. I mean, my grandmother was not a smoker. I mean, nobody in my family smoked whatsoever. So the ashtray is not really a typical representation of my family at all. But at one point in 1992, in Sarajevo, where I was born and raised, there was a war, and I had to run away. And in one dramatic moment, I ran to my house to say goodbye to my parents. We really didn't know if we will ever see each other again at that point. I couldn't take almost any things with myself. I took a plastic bag with, I remember, 2 T-shirts and I think one underwear. And that was all. Because I didn't know what's going to happen the next hour. I was trying to catch this train, but I didn't know if the train will actually leave the station. So it was, everything was unknown. But the thing is that I ran into my room, and then I thought, like, I have to, it was almost instinctively. I said, like, I need to take something with me, like from my home. Now I can fantasize that I wanted some sort of representation and memory, but no, this was really very, very instinctively. So I run into my room, and on my working table, there was this ashtray. And the reason I took it is only because it could fit in my shirt pocket. So you see, it's not that I was like picking, oh, maybe this would remind me of that. No. It was really just the size and shape, and I could carry it with me, and I did. The story goes on and on. Fields and buses and rivers and cities, and then I'm in Sweden for next 20 years, and then I'm in Amsterdam, and then I'm back in Serbia. But still, I have this ashtray. I never ever went back to Sarajevo again, and I kept it. And sometimes it feels like my entire life before the war was just a dream, like it never happened. And the ashtray is a reminder, a physical object, a proof that we used to be somewhere else in other settings, that I used to be somewhere else in other settings. And also, as my experiences and narratives about this historical event are quite different from the most common or most well-promoted narratives from this history, I have to remind myself that I was really there. It wasn't a dream, and that I know what I know, that is a truth. And that it does not matter that others are often presenting it differently. So I want to ask these questions. Who owns the memory? Who owns the narratives about the past? How do we remember? Why do we remember? And what do we want to achieve by preserving memories? Those are very complicated questions, but I took this example from my own personal experience of something that is important for me, and why, and how I use it, and how I remember. Well, in any case, our organization Terraforming, as I said, based in Novi Sad in Serbia, is an independent and non-profit organization. And we work with improving teaching and learning about the Holocaust, combating anti-Semitism, anti-Gypsyism, and other forms of xenophobia, and promoting and empowering the culture of remembrance. And also we develop educational methodologies and teaching materials, trying to combine best practices in contemporary pedagogy with new media technologies. You can find more about us on our website, and this is the web address where you can find also the publication. I'm also a member of a delegation of the Republic of Serbia to the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IRA, and a member of its education working group, and of the Committee for the Remembrance of the Genocide of the Roma. And now back to International Library Platform for Education about the Holocaust. So the project proposes a new strategy. It's an idea for engaging libraries and library infrastructure in education about the Holocaust, to inspire and stimulate important international stakeholders, institutions, and experts, and to initiate a collaborative platform of international resources for Holocaust education, centered around libraries and librarians, their network and resources. So the idea of an international library platform that would serve to engage library infrastructure and professionals and literature and Holocaust-related collections in teaching and learning about the Holocaust arose after several years of our work promoting this topic with library networks in Serbia, primarily working very closely and nicely with the National Library of Serbia, but also other libraries. The project aimed at that time to create a contextual, pedagogical, and technical framework for this platform of international resources. And in this context, the international platform represents a set of shared methodologies and goals. But let me show you some of the thoughts that we gathered on this during this process. So, as Jan-Erik Dubelman, the international director of the Anne Frank House, says, learning is not constricted to schools. It is an ongoing process. And we will be learning for an additional 60 or 70 years after we finish schools. So there is a lot of room for learning, and learning is going on. And also, for instance, as Professor Dr. Doyle Stevick from the University of South Carolina said, the Holocaust is a big and complex topic. And at the same time, history teachers in schools don't have enough really time to go deep into this complicated and complex subject. So library and archive could contribute to teaching and learning in a very significant way. Also, the Holocaust is one of the case studies of the fake news denial, distortion of history, falsification, manipulation of facts, and so on. So it really shows, this teaching really shows how we could address denial and distortion and developing critical radar, as Professor Doyle Stevick say, to be able to be skeptical of information and yet know how to confirm it. I think that this is really, really important argument. In any case, in this idea of this platform, we are trying to reinvent, or maybe to talk about reinventing the pedagogical role of libraries in this context, engaging libraries as multipliers and guides to information in the fields of education about the Holocaust. And we want to involve the existing library infrastructure, collections, professionals, and networks in Holocaust education and commemoration. And I'm emphasizing existing because really we are not looking for anything new here. Neither new infrastructure, no new collection, no the new people. It's all already there. Also, in this process, we want to help libraries and librarians to identify and contribute to safeguarding and sharing Holocaust records. And what kind of Holocaust records would that be? Well, it would be local Holocaust records and narratives, of course, which is great. And we want to explore innovative ways of using literature as starting point in teaching and learning about the Holocaust. And I will explain in this presentation a little bit later that there are so many very different kinds of sources and resources and records that one could use that are already existing in libraries, from artifacts, documents, historical documents, but also literature, books, basically. There is an interest. Libraries are motivated and interested to work with this. As Dr. Dragana Milunovic from the National Library of Serbia say, that as a national institution, it's by definition in charge of preserving knowledge, information, and memory, and in particular of something so significant such as the Holocaust. But also, as Dr. Robert Rosette, the director of Yad Vashem Library, says, I think that maybe not every kind of library is the right place, but many libraries are very good places for informal education, hosting lectures or teaching of some sort. Many libraries have spaces for exhibits, of course. If you have an exhibit, then you may be able to have another activity based on it. So libraries are really good places for informal education. And there is another very important aspect of this concept. We're talking about education about the Holocaust in the information age. We're talking about identifying and utilizing, you know what I mean, new opportunities and potentials for Holocaust education in the evolving cultural heritage infrastructure of digital humanities. Now, this is a revolution, and libraries are right on the forefronts of this. And we simply have to catch this train because it's too late. When I say we, I mean the education about the Holocaust. We want to create strategies for education about the Holocaust in a new environment of digital transformation. And this digital transformation is not about museums, libraries, and archives as physical spaces. It's about how we perceive and understand the memory and what the museum and what the memorialization and what remembrance is. We are shaping the future of digital culture of remembrance and preparing for a world without Holocaust survivors, which would be the first obvious sign that the memory of the Holocaust needs to be reshaped. Unfortunately, this will happen very, very soon because it's just a math. Holocaust survivors, unfortunately, are very, very old, and soon the world will be without first witnesses of the Holocaust. And we want to transfer knowledge about the Holocaust in the post-truth era. This is the environment where we are working, and preventing and addressing denial, distortion, and manipulation of history. And denial, but more importantly, distortion and manipulation of history is identified as the number one challenge of the future of Holocaust remembrance. So it's very logical that we turn to gatekeepers of truth and sources that are reliable, such as librarians and libraries. But there are also other aspects. Libraries, agents of cultural memory, as Dr. Werner Dreyer from Austria is saying. If we think of libraries as agents of the cultural memory, Then the National Library is an agent of national memory, and local library is an agent of local memory. And you can go deeper, and the school library is agent of school local memory. And this includes all the histories, including the dark histories of the Holocaust, in that kind of library. That would be also inclusion of that history into the respective memory. And it's a great potential to use these resource centers as part of combined efforts. And what he means by combined efforts of centers for teacher training and education, in particularly teacher trainings about the teaching about the Holocaust, and possible new centers where librarians should be prepared, could be prepared for such tasks. We're also talking about, when we speak about information age, introducing local histories, experiences, and narratives of the Holocaust to wider international audiences. And local is very, very important here, because, of course, that in libraries we would find local histories, and in smaller towns, in their libraries, we would find even more specific local histories and personal stories and traces and different kinds of Holocaust records. But we would be able to recognize and exchange the shared and specific local narratives, which are shared with many other spaces and places around Europe, but some are not typical for other spaces. Some are typical and specific only for this particular place. So we would be able to better understand the local particularities of the Holocaust in the wider European context. What I mean is, just as an example, for instance, because of lack of time, and usually, the teachers, they have about 45 minutes once in primary school and 45 minutes in secondary school to talk about the Holocaust. And that's about it. There is no more time on the common school system in Europe to talk about the Holocaust. Otherwise, teachers have to create their own momentum or find other ways to speak about it. It's not in curriculum more than this. And it's simply because there's a lot of history, so there is no room and space. And as a result, but also as a result of, I would say, a little bit simplified depiction of the Holocaust in the popular media, like in the films and the movies and the literature even. In many places, particularly in the Western Europe, people imagine that Holocaust is about those people with suitcases and then those trains, and then they're going to these death camps, and then they are being killed there. Yeah, true. It's a huge part of the Holocaust history. But Holocaust was executed in so many different ways around Europe. Maybe I should have said this earlier, but what is Holocaust? Well, the Holocaust is an attempt to destroy entire Jewish population and culture, prepared and executed by Germans, led by the Nazis, inspired by the Nazi ideology, and done on the entire territory of Europe under German control, and with the help of local collaborators and other fascist regimes that collaborated with Nazis. So that's the Holocaust. It resulted in the murder of about 6 million Jews. And this crime that took place between 1933 and 1945, so it's a period of time, quite a period of time, happened differently in different places, was executed differently in different places. In some places, people were shot, like in Eastern Europe. In some places, people were killed in concentration camps. In some places, it happened differently. In some places, there were ghettos. In some places, there were no ghettos. So to understand how Holocaust actually happened in Europe, one need to see the different specific local histories and micro-histories of Holocaust from all around Europe. And I think that this idea to engage local libraries and local Holocaust records is amazing opportunity to better understand this history. So we're talking also about identifying and safeguarding records, but also identifying Holocaust-related literature and other works in traditional and new media formats and employing it in Holocaust education. For instance, as Paul Salmons, from our friend from UK, said, we were thinking about the distinctive contribution that archivists and librarians can make. But in particular, they could contribute to explore their own local histories through the holdings of particular libraries. For instance, local newspapers from the time or archival documents. But also we should not forget that there are many different kinds of media kept in libraries. You librarians, you know this. There is new media, multimedia, movies, and music, and photographs, newspapers. Anything could contribute to teaching and learning about the Holocaust. Well, teaching and learning about the Holocaust is an umbrella term for the field encompassing formal and informal education settings, frameworks, methodologies, and research on Holocaust education around the world. It explores topics of history, memory, genocide, victims, perpetrators, bystanders, responsibility, trauma, educational methodologies, etc. Contemporary Holocaust education promotes multidisciplinary approach and combines civic and citizenship studies, social studies, literature, law, philosophy, etc., etc. And in times of the growing importance of digital citizenship skills, and I think this is extremely important, that's why I put it in such a huge font. When information technology is increasingly fundamental for engagement in society, politics, and government, teaching and learning about the Holocaust too must be incorporated in media and media literacy education. Also, creating this platform needs to be done together with librarians, with the experts. You guys, librarians, you know what you have, how you work, and how we could employ all the entire infrastructure. But we should combine this with other expertises, such as, in this case, expertise in teacher training for education about the Holocaust. There is a need out there to define Holocaust-related literature and materials. There is a need out there to create Holocaust libraries, for instance, in Holocaust memorial centers, such as the one in Skopje. And our colleague Goran Sadikario described his problem with finding a librarian who would be able and capable to create and maintain a Holocaust library. What is it? Nobody was able really to answer to this question. So what is Holocaust-related literature? Well, this is our own definition. There is no one that is like applicable for everyone and everywhere. It's in our position is that it includes novels, stories, poetry, graphic novels, or any other literary work that could offer insight into people and societies in times before, during, and after the Holocaust, and contributes to better understanding of the processes, causes, and consequences of the Holocaust on all kinds of levels: individual, social, emotional, psychological, philosophical, religious, and so on and so on. So it could be a poetry. It could be, for instance, a book by David Al-Bahari, Goetz and Meyer, about two SS officers who drove a Saurer lorry in occupied Serbia. It was a mobile gas chamber, and two of them precisely these two people murdered about 6,400 Jews in Belgrade. Or it could be a book by Alexander Tishma, the Book of Blam, and about this person, Miroslav Blam, who walks along the former Jewish street in Novi Sad and remembering Novi Sad raid. But there are many other things. For instance, books as artifacts of history. Our colleague Olivia Kaiser from Vienna University Library, she's working on this project of identifying books that were taken from the Jews that were killed in the Holocaust. And those books could be in libraries around Austria, and we would not know that they are actually stolen from people that were murdered. So the books itself, the actual book, it doesn't really matter what the book is about, is a memory. It's a significant historical artifact that shows what happened to the owner of this particular book. But also, what could we find in libraries? I'm just taking very simple examples. For instance, this document is available in the Belgrade City Library. It's from 20th of April in 1935. Getza Kohn, very famous Jewish publisher. He's not a Jewish publisher, he's just a publisher that happens to be Jewish. Probably the most well-known publishing house in former Yugoslavia before Second World War. And he's donating books that he published to the Belgrade City Library. It's a document about it. He is donating 1,080 books as a donation to the Belgrade City Library. And this document is there, and the books are still there. Or this is a newspaper from this particular number from edition from 23rd July 1926. And this particular paper could be found at the University Library Svetozar Marković in Belgrade. And in red, there is this article about the head rabbi of Yugoslavia, who is, I really like this article, who's writing to the Jewish youth of Yugoslavia in the second part of 1920s and telling them that they should stop caring so much about the common earthly things and go back at least a little bit to Jewish tradition, which, if you analyze the article, actually shows how the Jewish youth was well incorporated into society, because they were interested more in the daily life, participating into daily life just as in all other citizens. And the rabbi was a little bit desperate and trying to call them back to the Jewish traditions. It's just a little vignette, a little picture of the past available, as I said, in this University Library of Belgrade. Or, for instance, large collections of private photographs in the National Library of Serbia. I'm just showing these as examples of that one could find in just one city very fast. But if you start combining and raising it to the next level, to combine international and exchange this on international level, you can suddenly start learning more and different things. You can learn from different countries about different literature, different experiences. You can hear about the books and literature from other parts of Europe. And it leads me also to Memorial Days. Memorial Days are quite often commemorated and programmed in libraries as well. Of course, why not? Libraries are cultural spaces with cultural programs, often marking anniversaries of different kinds. But did you know that there are so many different Memorial Days in Europe related to the Holocaust? Let us do this test. We have a poll ready here, and I would like you to mark the Holocaust-related Memorial Days dates that you are familiar with. You can scroll a little bit. There are more than what you just see on the first screen. So
just a quick note that there's about 10 minutes left.
Yes, thank you very much. So you can mark those that you are familiar about. I will not participate in the poll because I know all those dates because I created the poll. It's cheating. And I didn't know all of them. I knew most of them. Okay, so some people knew about 27th of January. Also, by looking at this, I will be able to guess where the participants are from. Okay. This is not a science, it's just a test. So I see that majority of you knew about 27th of January. And which is International Holocaust Memorial Day. But did you know that 22nd of April and 10th of May and 16th of December are official memorial days related to the Holocaust in Republic of Serbia? So obviously something important happened on these days when they are marked as memorial days. And 16th of July in France, and 5th of May in, for instance, in Netherlands, among other places. 2nd of August is International Day of Remembrance of the Genocide of the Roma, and so on and so on. So some of you never heard of 9th of October or 16th of July. 16th of July is in France, so we don't have any French participants here. Yeah, there you go. We can stop the poll. Because what I wanted to say is that imagine if we would organize in an organized way, share the just the information of which memorial days we are commemorating in our countries and why and what happened through library exchange on this international level, to learn about the local histories. And we are talking here about national histories, not some peculiar events that happened in a small town. We're talking about events that are so significant that they are national memorial days. I have quite a huge presentation, so I will end it now and jump over to my last slide just to thank you. I will be happy to share my presentation as a PDF later on to anyone who's interested. But now I would really like to offer some time for questions or comments. We have, I believe, about 5 minutes left.
Misko, there was a question from Marho. She wanted to know at the beginning whether you were talking specifically about public libraries or also research libraries. And then there's an interesting conversation in the chat about that, where some people say that even crowdsourcing projects or private collections are also important.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not actually seeing the chat. I will try to turn it on somehow, somewhere. Actually, I might turn off the sharing, stop share. Yeah, let's get back to reality. I was talking about all kinds of libraries. Public libraries, research libraries, special libraries, school libraries, basically any library that could contain Holocaust records would qualify to participate in this. And I would say that almost any library, if not every, but let's say almost, could contain something that could be used at least to start a conversation about important topics related to the Holocaust.
There was also a question about private collections, if there's any space for them in this project.
Of course. I jumped over. I thought I don't have enough time, and I still think I didn't have enough time to show you this. But for instance, as a part of our project, we were looking at private collections, of course, as well. For instance, there are some collections that are returned back to the families of people that were robbed during the Holocaust. Or there are private collections that were donated to libraries that are actually in itself testimonies of what happened to the people that preserved their books. I am thinking about this particular case of the Maya family in Belgrade. They were about to be killed in the Holocaust, but he managed to donate his huge collection of books, his library, his personal private library, to the National Library. It was smuggled to the National Library. They were all killed, but their books were saved. So we have those books in the National Library of Serbia today as a special collection. So of course, all kinds of libraries.
Okay, thank you, Misko. We don't have any more questions in the chat, but we still have 3 minutes. So if people would like to ask questions, I suggest you just unmute yourself.
Yes, please do. And as I said, our website, you already saw it, is www.terraforming.org. I wrote it as a private message, unfortunately, to a lucky winner, but now I will share it to everyone. So this is where you can download the publication and read more about it. And please, because that's one of the most, one of the reasons why I wanted to share this with you, please get in touch. We are looking for new partners. We're looking for new ideas. We would like to continue developing this idea in more concrete, either smaller step projects or in whatever way and shape it could be developed further.
Maybe I could say something.
Sure.
Sure. Hi, Misko. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to know more about the cooperation with this project and Europeana. What is actually in your plans, or how do you see this kind of cooperation?
Thank you, Tamara. I just noticed it's you because I just heard a voice and I couldn't see who's talking. Europeana was an official partner of this project from the beginning, the project that started and ended in this phase. So our cooperation officially ended when this phase of the project ended. Of course, Europeana didn't close their doors to our project at all, but we need to reformulate it, how and what exactly we expect from Europeana. And we learned more about how Europeana is built, what kind of services and knowledge and know-how they have. And of course, there is a huge wealth of opportunities and knowledge and technology available through Europeana. But we need to come up with the both content, which is in many ways already out there, but more in a way how to connect it through, for instance, Europeana as platform, to the usability, which would be educational outreach or turning library collections into resources for education about the Holocaust.
I think you're saying the last question, Misko.
Yeah.
And we're running out of time, so probably the last one, if that's okay.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Margot. Yeah, we are working So most of our experts engaged in the project are actually experts in didactics, in developing, in particular, teaching and learning about the Holocaust. So they were introduced to this idea to look at the resources available in libraries. So actually, the focal point of the project is precisely to develop educational methodologies that fit contemporary didactics of the teaching and learning about the Holocaust by using resources from libraries, for instance. Yes, USHMM's project is, for instance, such example. We are working with them, of course, and we are familiar with it. Yeah, I think that's about it. So I would like to thank you all very much and our hosts in Europeana for giving me this opportunity.